Hello and welcome to today's webinar on content marketing, 5 steps to get started. I am Joe Polizzi, founder of the Content Marketing Institute. Thanks to Schweike Media for letting me hang out with you for the next 40 minutes or so. What I'm really going to talk to you today is a couple things. First, we're really going to talk about what content marketing is. There's a lot of confusion in the marketplace, so I definitely want to talk about that. And then I'm going to give you some examples, a little bit of research, and then we're going to talk about 5 steps that I think are key to really getting started when you think about content marketing, since there's all kinds of confusion, as we just talked about, going around. So I like to start off with this. This is the Furrow magazine. Furrow magazine is developed by John Deere, a little company called John Deere, and it was actually created back in 1895, and the image on the left side is from a 1931 image. I don't have an earlier image, and then today's image is on the right from the Furrow magazine. I like to show this because there's so many people that think that content marketing is new, and actually it's been around for hundreds of years per this example of John Deere. And actually there's the thing that most people don't realize is that the Furrow magazine is the largest circulated farming magazine in the world, with over 1.5 million subscriptions, 14 languages, and 40 countries. So I want you to keep that in mind, because we're going to talk a lot about brands creating their own content, brands acting as media companies throughout the presentation today, because it's really critical. So that's when we get to content marketing, and I think depending on who you are, if you are a publisher, a printer, a marketer yourself, you're going to get a lot out of this presentation, and I'm going to try to couch the term content marketing from all of those perspectives depending on where you're coming from. But I want to start off with a definition. I think it's really critical that everyone understands what content marketing really is, because a lot of people say, oh, findable SEO content is content marketing, or videos are content marketing. Well, they're content assets, but not necessarily content marketing. So if you think about content marketing, you talk about your owned media channels, not renting. So traditionally, over the past 50 years, people are creating, businesses have been creating advertising alongside other people's content to attract customers, to get attention, to build awareness. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about owning the media channel. So instead of being the advertisement, we're talking about being the content. So it would be John Deere's own magazine, or American Express Open Forum, their own content site, something that they actually own. Why are they doing it? To attract and retain customers. What are they doing through those channels? Creating or curating valuable, compelling content. It is consistent. This is key. Consistency is key, because there's so many content projects out there that are just like, oh, there's a great viral video, or we're going to do 2 blogs. Well, that's content, but it's not necessarily content marketing, because content marketing falls outside the campaign. So if you say you're going to start a content marketing campaign, really that's not true. You can't really do that, because if you are building upon a content marketing philosophy, content marketing never ends when you're talking about having a content marketing mindset. When you say campaign, there is an end date. But with content marketing, it's not, because if you start a magazine or you start a blog post, you're basically, although you'll adapt it, you'll go on forever. And you'll be doing that to attract and retain customers in some way. And if you are a publisher or you're offering content marketing services, that's the way that you sell those. You actually go and you say, even though your agreement may be for 1 year or 3 years, you're not going to say, oh, we're going to do a magazine just for 6 months, or we're going to do this blog post for 3 months. Now, it doesn't make any sense, because content is a promise to your customers. You've got to keep that promise. And then the most important thing, you create content as part of a content marketing program to change or enhance the behavior. So if you're just business, you're just creating content. But to do content marketing, you have to be doing something for the business. It has to change or maintain some type of a behavior. So if you think about the importance of content marketing and why it's skyrocketing and why everybody's talking about it, it's really because of these 3 things. Do you want to get found in Google, search engine optimization? Do you want to drive leads or online lead generation? If you want to have anything relevant to say in social media, it has to start with the stories you tell. And that's all about content marketing, content creation, and content distribution. So I want you to think about that, because so many people start at social media. They'll say, oh, I need to do a blog post, or I want to do a blog, or I want to do Facebook, or I want to do Twitter or LinkedIn. But they don't think about the strategy of what goes inside of that vessel. So it's really important, and we'll talk a lot about that as we go through the rest of this presentation. But we've almost skipped, a lot of companies have skipped that whole strategy process, which is really critical to starting off on the right foot with content marketing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a couple of big examples and kind of what's going on in the industry from a research standpoint, and then we're going to get into those 5 kickstart comments for you so you can get rolling with your content marketing program. So this is a picture. This very happy gentleman is Jonathan Mildenhall. He's got a very long, impressive title at Coca-Cola, but basically he runs the Center for Content Excellence at Coca-Cola. And what really happened a few years ago is Jonathan put a strategy together, the content strategy for Coca-Cola, and it was this. It's Coca-Cola Content 2020. And it's actually available. So I want to give you some homework. You can just type this into Google. It's 2 videos, one's 7 minutes and one's 10 minutes, and it basically lays out Coca-Cola's content strategy. And this screenshot really tells it best. I mean, Coca-Cola, as we know, one of the best creative brands out there in figuring out how to create an emotional connection with customers. But basically, through this content strategy, Jonathan's saying, look, we can't just focus on creative excellence anymore. We have to move to content excellence, and so that's something they call liquid storytelling. And what we're seeing is more and more of a focus from Coca-Cola's perspective on creating their own content channels versus advertising. Now, they're going to spend a ton on advertising. They will continue to. Advertising is not going away. But more and more important in Coke's strategy is talking about content and creating their own content. Here's an example of that. This was covered in the Times and the Journal a few months ago. It's Coca-Cola Journey. And basically they have 4 full-time journalists and 40 freelance journalists and writers on to tell stories to create an emotional connection with Coca-Cola drinkers or prospects around business issues, entertainment, environmental, sustainability issues, innovation issues, whatever the case is. So they're acting like a media company, and they're publishing what they feel is relevant, valuable content because their goal is to create an emotional connection. And what Jonathan Mildenhall says is that if they can create an emotional connection through the content they create, they don't have to trade against that relationship quite as often to sell stuff. So it's very, very important to their overall strategy. And then when people say, Joe, you know, tell me what the greatest example of content marketing is. What is the future? And the future is now, and it's Red Bull. So I don't know what it is about, you know, sugary caffeinated drinks, but, you know, they're really taking a hold on this whole thing called content marketing. Red Bull Media House I would put up against any one of the, you know, wonderful publishing institutions we have out there, because really Red Bull is a media company first, and they just happen to sell energy drinks second. Let me give you some examples of what that is. First of all, Red Bull Content Pool. If you remember the Space Jump guy and all the media that went around that, and the videos, for, you know, over 4 million video views and everything on the press, that's content that Red Bull owns. And when the media wants to go to them to license that content, they actually have to pay them. So this is a profit center within Red Bull, which is amazing. You have the media companies going to Red Bull to get their access to their 50,000 plus photos or 5,000 plus videos about all the things that they cover. So it's really amazing. They're already doing a ton of media, and they're licensing that. I don't know if you're aware, but Red Bull has a record label where they fund independent artists out there that are attracting the same kind of audiences that Red Bull wants to attract. They have the Red Bull magazine, goes to 4.8 million people digitally and in print all over the world. One of the best examples of a digital magazine that you'll ever see out there, and plus they still do print, which I absolutely love with the print magazine. And then we could talk about Red Bull forever. They have television stations, radio stations, sports stations, I mean, whatever you want to go through, they're focusing on it. And they really are indeed a media company. And I think we're seeing Red Bull do this now, but I think what we're going to see is this is now the exception, not the rule. But in the future, it will be the rule and not the exception. I mean, most of the brands that we work with at Content Marketing Institute, we work with mostly Fortune 1000 companies, and they're all building these Center for Content Excellences, and they're building these internal content marketing units so they can create these owned media properties. And earned media and paid media are still important to that, but owned media is ever critical because of what we talked about before with search engine optimization, social media, lead generation, and the fact that consumers can tune us out at any time with our advertising. So our messages have to be relevant, and they have to be compelling, and they have to make the person that we send it to want to do something with it, share that, so that we can attract more people. So a little bit of research here before we get into the next 5 points here. This is research, our third year of research between the Content Marketing Institute and Marketing Profs, and here's the short link there if you want to get access to it. It's completely free and ungated. But again, for the third year in a row, we asked, how many of you are using content marketing, basically creating content to attract and retain customers, and basically 91% are using content marketing. And there's a caveat to that, and I'll share that with you in just a little bit. Budgets are going up. Budgets, depending on if you're looking at B2B versus B2C, are anywhere from 25% to 33% on the B2B side. Smaller companies have a higher percentage of budget because they don't have the paid media budgets that larger companies do. You can see those range 20 to 24%. We're seeing growth year over year from 2011 to 2012. And I'll zoom in on this in a second, but just so you can see, I like to show this chart of content marketing tactics because a lot of companies I deal with, they don't really believe when I say, yes, we are all publishers now. But if you look at all the things that you're doing, the average company does 12 of these things, these content tactics: social media, e-newsletters, videos, white papers, research reports, microsites, mobile sites, e-books, print magazines, and whatnot. So we are all publishers, and I think there's a responsibility that goes along with that, that we have to, if you are a publisher, if you want to teach these types of skills to your customers because they're going to do it anyways, and if you're an advertiser, if you're a marketer client side, you have to figure out how you're going to create the processes to get this done right. And if we zoom in, social media, 87% of companies are creating content specifically for social media sites like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. 78% have e-newsletters, 77% have blogs, 69% in-person events. So it's not just electronic. It is print as well. 31% have their own print magazines. So we're doing all this publishing, right? We're creating a ton of content to try to attract and retain customers. And we're putting more and more money into it. 54% say they're going to increase their budgets over the next 12 months. So it's like, great, this is all wonderful. But then if we really look at the stats and we say, well, how effective are you with your content marketing? Just 36% believe that they're effective. And this is a problem, right? So we're seeing 91% are using it, 54% are increasing their budgets, and yet just 1 in 3 effectively think that they're doing a good job at content marketing. So this is a problem. One of the problems is very clear when we ask, what is the biggest content marketing challenge, and maybe you feel this yourself. So a lot of marketers out there producing enough content is a challenge. It's actually the first year that we've seen producing enough content as a challenge leapfrog producing the kind of content that engages. So producing enough content is the biggest challenge, but yet let's see, in the last year I've spoken at more than 60 locations all around the world talking about content marketing, and I always ask the question, how many of you have a documented, written, either on a computer or a dead tree, content strategy for how you're going to distribute your content? And less than 10% across the board have a documented strategy. So if we look at our biggest challenge, we know this to be true. Everywhere we go, everywhere we talk, people don't have a content marketing strategy with what channels they're going to use, why they're using it, what the overall return is going to be, how they're going to measure it, the metrics involved, all those types of things. So if you look at this, producing enough content is the biggest challenge. I always say, how do you know? You don't know. If you don't have a strategy, how do you know that producing enough content? We always think that when we don't have a strategy, throwing more content at the problem is going to solve it. If we have more blog posts and more Facebook posts and more tweets and more of everything, it's going to get better, and that's not necessarily true. Because what we want is the right content at the right time that's going to do the right thing for our customers and thus our business. I really call this the problem with what? It happens all the time because we get focused on these disco ball tools. And I don't know if you've seen this example. This is American Express Open Forum. So this is the content platform for Open. They target small businesses with 99% of this is content that is not about American Express. They talk about case studies. They talk about operational issues for small businesses, financial issues, marketing issues, those types of things. And they drive as many leads for Open cards through this as they do through anything else that they do. So it's really amazing that they're not selling, but they're selling. So it's the ultimate soft sell in doing this. But we get a lot of companies coming to us saying, hey, we want to do American Express Open Forum. Can we do that? Or I love what Starbucks is doing in their content strategy on their Twitter account. Can we do something like that? Or they'll say, you know, we need a Pinterest strategy, you know, and this is my Pinterest page, which, by the way, has no business objective at all. It's just my ode to my infatuation with the color orange. But we get a lot of people saying, hey, we need to be on Pinterest. And I'm like,